Hi everybody, happy Saturday. Today I'm going to share this story with you called Let the Children March. And we'll talk about some big ideas and some big words together that can be a little bit tricky to talk about for grown-ups and tricky for kids too. So there's some things that are happening in the world right now that are a little bit scary and a little bit unsafe for a lot of people, and people are choosing to protest, which is like when a group of people come together and speak up because something happened that wasn't safe and something happened that was wrong and it wasn't keeping people safe. And so something that's happening right now is that people are protesting a big word called racism. And racism means that things happen to people that aren't safe, or people get hurt or treated badly because they have skin that is black or brown. And racism is not a new thing that's happening. It's something that's been happening for a long time, and something that a lot of people have been trying to make better for a long time. And sometimes things get a little bit better, and sometimes things get a little bit worse. And so it's kind of a big problem in the world that we can all do our part to work together to help figure out how to make things a little bit better. So this story is called Let the Children March, and the author is Monica Clark Robinson, and it's illustrated by a man named Frank Morrison, who is a really, really talented artist and makes a lot of really beautiful illustrations. Let the Children March by Monica Clark Robinson, illustrated by Frank Morrison. So what's happening here is there are children who are participating in a protest. Let's find out. 1963. So this is a long time ago. This book takes place a long time ago during a time called the Civil Rights Movement, which was a big time where a lot of people were protesting racism because a lot of people with black and brown skin weren't being kept safe by people with white skin, and by police officers, and by people who make laws and rules for where we live. So 1963, Birmingham, Alabama. I couldn't play on the same playground as the white kids. I couldn't go to their schools. I couldn't drink from their water fountains. There were so many things I couldn't do. One warm spring night, my family went to church. We weren't there to have regular services. We were there to hear Dr. King speak. We were there to plan. He wanted to raise an army of peaceful protesters to fight for freedom. His brown eyes flashing fire and love, Dr. King told us the time had come to march. This is Dr. Martin Luther King. He's a man that worked really hard to try to make the problem of racism better. And he made a lot of progress, but there's still a lot of work to do. If I march, Mama said, I'll lose my job sure enough. I can't march, Daddy said. I got a family to feed. The weight of the world rested on our parents' shoulders. But this burden, this time, did not have to be theirs to bear. So when people did protests and marched, a lot of them got in trouble. And so that's why the parents are feeling worried that if they go and they do a protest, they might get in trouble, and it might mess up their jobs or mess up their ability to make money and take care of their families. I don't have a boss to fear, my brother said, or a job to lose. We can march this time. We'll be Dr. King's army, I said. I'll be fine, Daddy, I promised. Don't worry, Mama. So these kids are making a plan. Dr. King didn't like children being put in harm's way. He was a daddy too, after all. But he said that though we were young, we were not too young to want our freedom. Let the children march. They will lead the way, he said. On May 2nd, a sunny Thursday, boys and girls, brothers and sisters, cousins and friends, we all met at the church, dressed in our best, feet ready. In a silence so loud that all I could hear was my racing heart, we began to walk. Hand in hand we marched, so frightened, yet certain of what was right for freedom. So freedom means that everybody gets to get the same things and live the same quality of life. So everyone gets to live a good life. And that's kind of what freedom means. And they were having a hard time living a great life because of racism. And so that's why they marched and that's why they protested. The path may be long and troubled, but I'm going to walk on. Would I be hurt? Would we be heard? Would it all be worth it in the end? I wanted to run from the angry faces in the crowd, run from danger, run from fear. But boys and girls, brothers and sisters, cousins and friends, on and on we marched, we marched, we marched, singing the songs of freedom, 1,000 strong we came. So they made signs. These signs say things like, better schools now, fair employment now. So during the time of the civil rights movement, children who had black and brown skin had to go to schools that weren't as good as the schools that white children got to go to. They had to use bathrooms that were different. They couldn't go in the same stores or buy the same things or sit in the same benches, and they weren't allowed to be friends with kids that had different colored skin than they had. Hate dogged my heels all that day. Its yellowed canine teeth sharp, but courage walked by my side and kept me going. Disperse or you'll be jailed, the police shouted the first day. Disperse or you'll get wet, the police shouted the second day. Disperse or we'll release the dogs, the police shouted the third day. We did not disperse. We kept on marching. We wouldn't stop until things started to change. Police officers' jobs is to keep everybody safe. But during the civil rights movement, and even right now during the protests that are happening, there are some police officers who are not doing their job to keep everybody safe. And they're not doing their job to keep people that have black and brown skin safe. And that's a part of the big problem of racism. And that's a part of the reason that people are speaking up and people are protesting and people are marching. Hundreds of us went to jail on the first day, even more on the second. My turn wasn't until the third day. After I was sprayed by water, stronger than anything I'd ever felt, rough hands pushed me forward and I fell to my knees in the police wagon. I was going to jail. Dr. King reassured our parents. Don't worry about your children, he said. They're going to be all right. Don't hold them back if they want to go to jail, for they are doing a job for not only themselves, but for all of America and all of mankind. So a lot of people who were protesting during the civil rights movement and people who are protesting now are getting arrested and taken to jail because people don't know. Sometimes laws are made that aren't keeping people safe. And so sometimes when you speak up and you say that law is wrong and that law is not okay, then sometimes that might cause trouble, and that's part of the reason why sometimes people go to jail. But it's important to speak up when things aren't fair and when things aren't safe, even if it causes a little bit of trouble. That night, crowded into a cell too small, or even half of the kids, we sang, "We shall overcome. I ain't gonna let nobody turn me round, and freedom is coming." Those are songs. Those are like brave freedom songs. Our parents couldn't be there with us, but still we sang, wrapped up in the proud and loving arms of our ancestors. Look at these beautiful illustrations. I was still in jail, but we heard the next day and the next more kids marched. The water hoses they used to sting us could not stop our fierce tide. The path may be long and troubled, but I'm gonna walk on. So here's more children who are marching, more children who are protesting, and here's some grown-ups and some white people who are yelling at them and telling them to stop and telling them that what they're doing, that they're protesting, isn't okay, and and these people want the children to stop marching because it's making them feel uncomfortable. That's called counter-protesting. Sometimes that happens. Turn the other cheek, we had been taught. Show love where there is hate. The world watched as hate bruised us. But for 7 days we walked only in love. The jails swelled to bursting, and even President Kennedy took notice. Daddy said the president received letters and calls about us from all over the world. Our march would become a memory, a small part of a larger story, but we had been heard, and the seeds of revolution were sown. So revolution is a big word, and it's an important word. And a revolution is when a lot of people come together to work towards making the world a better, safer, kinder place for everyone to live, and especially for people who've been mistreated for a long time and people who haven't been kept safe for a long time. Like people who have black and brown skin and people who've experienced racism. They've experienced people being mean to them and people hating them just because their skin is a different color. So a revolution is when lots of people work together to make that problem better and to make the world safer. 2 days and nights I stayed in the jail. Some stayed even longer. When I left, I was tired and sore, and my best dress was ripped, but my smile was as wide as the Mississippi River. I had made a difference. "I'm so proud of you, baby girl," Mama said. "Your march was what made them see." With nothing more than our feet, voices, and courage, we had done what others could not. Change was right around the corner. We felt like a cool breeze in an Alabama August. On May 10th, the great news rang out. Dr. King had reached an agreement with the white leaders of the city. Desegregation would begin. So desegregation means that they changed the laws about not letting people with black and brown skin be in the same places as people with white skin. And so they changed, there used to be laws and rules that said that those things were against the law and against the rules. So if you had black skin and you went to a bathroom that was for people with white skin, you could get arrested. And here, through this protesting and this marching, they changed the laws. But it didn't change the ideas of all of the people. So there were some people who were still mad and still angry and still choosing not to keep people safe, even though the laws changed. 1 month later, I was playing on a playground I'd never been allowed to play on before. 2 months later, my family ate dinner at a restaurant we'd never been allowed to eat in before. Our march made the difference. We children led the way. Singing songs of freedom, 1,000 strong, we came. And here's some pictures from the real marches that were happening in the 1960s during the Civil Rights Movement. So this is a picture of when the children were being sprayed by the hose by the police officers. And here's some other pictures of the children, the real children who marched during that time. And so these children and the protests that they did a long time ago, and Martin Luther King and people like Rosa Parks and Malcolm X really worked to try to solve the problem of racism, and they got a lot of the laws changed, like we read about in the story. And they changed the laws that said that people with different colors of skin could have the same rights and the same quality of life. But what happened was that there were still people who were really angry. There were still people with white skin who thought that they should have better things just because their skin was white. And that's still happening right now, and that's still happening these days. And so that's something that people are really working to try to make better. And it's something that all of us can work together to make better. And so one of the ways that we can do that is if you see something happening where someone isn't being kept safe because of the color of their skin, or there are kids or people who are being mean or being unkind or saying hurtful things to people because their skin is a different color, our job is to say something, and our job is to call that racism, and our job is to say that's not okay. You can't say those kinds of things. It's not okay. And another thing we can do to help is just to make sure that we're doing our best job to keep people safe. And that if you have questions, or if you see something that makes you feel uncomfortable, that you ask a grown-up, you ask an adult that you trust to help you think about it. Because sometimes, like when I was a little kid, there weren't a lot of people who were teaching kids about this kind of stuff and teaching kids about racism. There weren't a lot of white people that were teaching kids about that, teaching white kids. And so it's really important for all kids with all skin colors, but especially kids with white skin, to learn about racism so that we can help to make the problem better. And so that is kind of a really big idea and a big word, and it's something that you should talk to your parents more about, and they can help you kind of understand. And so I'll be sharing some more stories coming up soon, so keep staying tuned, and you can send me a message if you have any questions about the story that we read today. So I hope you have a great rest of your day, and remember to speak up if you see something happening that is wrong or that isn't keeping people safe.